In the high-stakes world of courtroom drama, lawyers prepare for everything. They anticipate arguments, they prep witnesses, and they build their cases brick by solid brick. But sometimes a single piece of evidence emerges that no one saw coming. An earth-shattering revelation that sends shockwaves through the courtroom and flips the entire case on its head. Today, we're rediving into some of the most stunning moments in legal history where unexpected evidence left everyone, especially the lawyers, completely speechless. Let's start with a case that seemed open and shut. A man was accused of a robbery, and the prosecution had what they thought was an airtight case. They had an eyewitness who confidently identified the defendant in a lineup. The defense lawyer was struggling, trying to poke holes in the witness's testimony, but it was like punching at a brick wall. The witness was unshakable. The jury was convinced. The defendant's future looked bleak. But then the defense played its final, desperate card. They called a new witness to the stand, a telecommunications expert. The courtroom buzzed with confusion. What could this expert possibly have to say? The expert presented cell phone tower data. Now, this might sound dry, but stick with me. This data proved without a shadow of a doubt that at the exact time of the robbery, the defendant's cell phone was pinging off a tower over 50 miles away from the crime scene. The prosecutor immediately objected, arguing it didn't prove the defendant was with his phone, but the defense wasn't done. They then presented a photo, time-stamped by the phone's metadata, taken just minutes before the robbery. It was a selfie of the defendant standing in front of a landmark in that distant town, grinning from ear to ear. The jury gasped. The eyewitness in the gallery suddenly looked uncertain. The prosecutor's face went pale. The digital footprint had provided a perfect alibi that no one, not even the defendant's own lawyer initially, had thought to look for. The case was dismissed almost immediately. A man was saved from a wrongful conviction by a simple selfie. Now, let's turn to a civil case, a bitter inheritance dispute between two siblings over their late father's vast estate. The brother claimed their father had changed his will in his final days, leaving everything to him. He produced a signed document, seemingly legitimate, that disinherited his sister entirely. The sister was heartbroken and furious. She insisted her father would never do such a thing, and claimed the will was a forgery. Her lawyer hired handwriting experts who testified that the signature was likely forged, but the brother's experts argued it was genuine, just shaky due to the father's illness. The trial became a stalemate, a classic he said, she said scenario. It seemed the judge would have to make a call based on conflicting expert opinions. The sister's lawyer was preparing for a loss. But during a final review of the evidence box, a paralegal noticed something odd about the paper the forged will was written on. It looked like ordinary paper, but under a magnifying glass, there was a faint watermark. Feeling a glimmer of hope, the legal team sent the paper for forensic analysis. The results came back just as the trial was wrapping up. The lawyer dramatically interrupted the closing arguments, presenting a new finding to the judge. The forensic analysis proved the specific type of paper used for the will was uneven manufactured until 6 months after the father had passed away. There was a collective gasp in the courtroom. It was impossible for the father to have signed that document. The brother had not only forged the signature, but had done so on paper that had unexist when his father was alive. The forgery was exposed, and the brother faced perjury and fraud charges. Justice for the sister came from an almost invisible watermark. Let's explore another criminal case, this one involving a seemingly random act of vandalism that escalated tragically. A historic building was set on fire, and a security guard lost his life. The police arrested a local teenager with a history of minor offenses. The evidence against him was circumstantial but compelling. He had been seen near the area that night, and a can of the same brand of accelerant used to start the fire was found in his garage. His lawyer argued that it was a common brand, and that being near the scene was proof of guilt. But the prosecution painted a picture of a troubled youth, and things looked grim. The defense team decided to re-examine the crime scene photos, hoping to find anything the police might have missed. They spent days poring over hundreds of high-resolution images of the charred wreckage. One young lawyer on the team, an avid birdwatcher in his spare time, noticed something peculiar in a photo of a partially burnt window frame. It was a tiny, singed feather. At first, everyone dismissed it. What could a feather possibly prove? The young lawyer insisted. He recognized it as a feather from a rare species of parrot. This was strange, as these parrots were not native to the area. Driven by a hunch, the defense team started investigating local exotic bird owners. They found one, a man who lived just 2 blocks from the burned building. He was known in the community for his temper and had recently lost a lawsuit against the building's owners over a property dispute. When police, armed with a new search warrant, visited his home, they found more than just parrots. They discovered containers of the same accelerant, and hidden in his workshop, a jacket with burn marks, and several more of the same distinctive parrot feathers stuck to the fabric. When confronted with this bizarre but undeniable evidence, the man confessed. The feather, a tiny detail everyone else had overlooked, not only exonerated the teenager, but also unmasked the true culprit who had nearly gotten away with murder. Our final story takes us into a high-profile corporate espionage case. A tech startup accused a massive corporation of stealing their groundbreaking software code. The startup's founders claimed a former employee had taken the code with him when he was hired by the corporate giant. The corporation's defense was simple. They had developed their software independently. They had a team of top engineers and a mountain of documentation to prove their development process. The startup, with its limited resources, was on the verge of being crushed by the legal might of the corporation. The startup's lawyer knew the key was to prove the code was copied, not independently created. They analyzed both sets of code for weeks. They were functionally identical, but proving theft was another matter. Then, one programmer on the legal team noticed something strange in the original startup code. The lead developer at the startup was a huge fan of classical history and had hidden a little Easter egg in the comments of his code. He had written a few lines of code that did absolutely nothing, and in the comments next to it, he had typed a short, obscure quote from the Roman philosopher Seneca in Latin. It was his personal signature, a harmless inside joke. On a long shot, the lawyer asked his programmer to search the massive corporation's code for that exact Latin phrase. The courtroom was tense as the programmer ran the search live on the big screen for the judge and jury to see. Seconds felt like hours. And then it popped up. There, buried deep within millions of lines of the corporation's independently developed software, was the exact same useless block of code and the exact same obscure Latin quote from Seneca. The corporate lawyers' jaws dropped. Their engineers had been so lazy in their theft that they had simply copied and pasted everything, including the original developer's quirky, hidden signature. The case was over. The multi-billion-dollar corporation was caught red-handed, defeated by a 2,000-year-old quote from a Roman philosopher. These stories show us that the truth can often be found in the most unexpected places. A selfie, a watermark, a tiny feather, or a line of ancient Latin. For the lawyers in these cases, these discoveries were shocking, game-changing moments that turned certain defeat into stunning victory. It's a powerful reminder that in the quest for justice, you have to look everywhere, because you never know where the key piece of evidence might be hiding. Thanks for watching. If you found these stories as fascinating as I did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into incredible true stories. Let me know in the comments which case surprised you the most.